I'm going to go grab a water up here, right? Everybody hear me? Testing? Okay. So we've been studying the book of Numbers, and by the way, I did some door knocking this afternoon, and that's why my throat's so dry. I had to get some water. I talked to a couple of people. I actually talked to quite a few people. I talked to one lady over here. I guess it's on Harrison Avenue. She is with the Seventh-day Adventists. Her name was Marie. Maybe some of you guys know her. Or Pike Wagon. I get those confused because it's they merge right there. But I talked to her, and she had some interesting questions and things about the Bible. And we had a little. I believe Jerry passed by. We were sitting there on the porch, and he waved at me there. But she seems very interested. She's been we've been talking about some things. She's asking me. She's been talking about things such as sin. Is it inherited and things like that, and some things I want to study up some more on. And she's interested in continuing. And she says she's going to come. So she had my number from last time when I went door knocking, and she remembered me. So that was good. And then there was a man named Gary Doss. I don't know if anybody knows him. I talked to him today. He's close to you guys' house, a little closer to you guys, but he actually lives right there where the Graysville Church of God is right there. It's kind of a catty cornered right there. So maybe you guys know him, but if you don't, he was really friendly, and hopefully that they will come. His wife was not there. He said when she gets back, he was going to. I left my name, my number, the name of our Graysville here, Graysville Church of Christ, and everything. So hopefully they'll. You never know if you plant a seed with somebody and they can come out. Either way, it's good to get out in the community. And everybody I talked to, I let them know. I said, hey, it's not just if you just need some neighborly help, just give us a call too. We'll do what we can. If we can do something, we can help you out with that too. So that was. And the way I look at it, door knocking is always successful. Whether even if I don't even get to open my Bible up with somebody, if I can get out there and put my effort into getting the gospel to people, and I end up talking to people, and even just mention the name of Church of Christ, the Graysville Church of Christ, I'm happy. And I think it's fruitful either way, because whether I get to talk to somebody, whether I get to open my Bible up, I'm able to hone my skills in evangelism. So it's always, in my eyes, a very fruitful endeavor, whether I get to do a lot of talking about the Bible or not. Of course, I prefer to do that, but so that was very good there. So we've been studying in the book of Numbers, and it has been a very interesting ride, a little bumpy sometimes as far as how the nation of Israel has been doing, and sometimes they do what they're supposed to do. Sometimes they get a little lax in their spirituality. They start veering off the path of what God wants them to do. And we see that in spite of that, God, in spite of their weaknesses or frailties, God knew they weren't perfect. So what He does is, whenever they mess up, they make mistakes, God tries to show them, you need to hold to me in faith and quit trying to figure these things out on your own. Whenever you see these problems, these supposed problems in your mind, just remember that you have the one true living God in your presence. I wouldn't sit here and bring you out of Egypt and send Moses down with the plagues and part the Red Sea before your very eyes and destroy the most powerful nation on the face of the earth, and then get you out here in the wilderness and let you die. And so it's kind of like with us, God has given us His very best. He's given His Son. And if God did not withhold His Son from us, what else is He going to withhold from us? He's not going to withhold blessings from us. And we need to understand, if He has given us that, why would He not give us lesser things? And He makes that promise in His Word. He makes it clear that You need to just hold on to me in faith and everything's going to work out. But as we've seen, it's not always easy to do that because walking by faith is a pilgrimage. And the people of Israel in the book of Numbers, they didn't just get by one fell swoop over into the land, the promised land. It wasn't like, yep, just one step and we're done. You see, they had to go through the wilderness. They had to let God, and the reason God did that is to help them strengthen their faith and to prove them and get them to trust more in Him. Listen to Deuteronomy chapter 8. You don't have to turn there if you don't want to, but let me veer off the path for a minute, and I'll show you why. Because you might be wondering, why didn't God just pick them up and set them in the land? Why didn't He just take them and put them right over there? He could have done it. He could. It wasn't that far. Why didn't He do it? And the answer is right here in Deuteronomy chapter 8, in Deuteronomy, where He's giving a divine commentary on laws and things that He's already given. He says, beginning in verse 1, all the commandments which I command thee this day you shall observe to do, that you may live and multiply, go in and possess the land which I swear unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness to humble thee. You see, it wasn't just a matter of, well, I want to make it hard on you guys. I want to make it to where you're going to be just having all kind of problems. By the way, I'm glad to see our visitors tonight, and those who have been here before. But as I said, we're studying the book of Numbers tonight, just in case you didn't know. We're seeing why God actually, why He didn't just send them into the land straight away. It's because He wanted to let them go through some things and run into some difficulties and see how they react. And He's wanting to show them, look, I'm not going to leave you out here in the lurch. I'm not going to get you out here in something and say, well, yeah, that's too difficult, and just leave you. So, and as He says here, verse 2, and thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee, to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep His commandments or no. And He humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that He might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone, but by every word out of the mouth of God. Now that's a great passage, isn't it? That's what we need to know. That's what we need to look at. Because we get in our life and we think, well, we got to have shelter. We got to have somewhere to live. We got to have food. We got to have it. We have to have things to survive, right? Amen? But the thing about it is, what happens is we start thinking, well, that's all that life is all summed up about. But God continuously, that's why He wants to show us more. See, it doesn't happen overnight. From this day on forward, as a Christian, you're going to find that you have to learn that more and more, that we don't live by bread alone. We learn more and more that God, there's something more to life than material things. There's things that are greater and with more dignity, love, joy, peace, long-suffering, the promises of God, all these different things. That's what the real values of life are. And He said in Matthew 6:33, seek me first, and I'll add all the things to you. And I like how He says, I'll add the things to you. And it's like, that's the opposite of those things consuming you. Because that's what will happen. If we just let our spiritual life get lazy, we get lax, we'll end up doing that. And it happens sometimes we don't realize it's happening. So that's why we have the Bible, that's why we have the gospel, and to meet every first day of the week to continue to do what we need to do and remind us that we need God in all we do. So we're looking at Numbers. We're up into chapter 22, and I've had the title for the video tonight for online. I've got Numbers 22 to 24. And the reason I did that is not because I expect to get through all that tonight, because I'm not. There's no way I'm going to get through all these chapters. These are kind of long. But the reason I did that is because this chapter is a section. If you're kind of keeping up with this, you want to mark that down in your notes or your Bible, that chapters 22 to 24, that could really just be one chapter. So they all go together, and we see there that there's some events that take place here that are very strange. We're going to see some events with a donkey that take place that speaks. If you're familiar with this account, it's you ain't gonna find something like anywhere else in the world like you find stories in the Old Testament. That you can't go nowhere. That's a mark of inspiration. But before we get into that, let me read a couple of New Testament verses, and you don't have to turn there if you don't want to, but listen to what the New Testament says about Balaam in 2 Peter. Before we get into the study, let's see here. It's in, not 2 Peter. Or no, yeah, 2 Peter 2. I'm sorry. Get my verse here. And he's the 2 Peter chapter 2 and Jude, the book of Jude, are basically what I call the righteous man's handbook on the false teacher. He's describing false teachers. He's describing how they do and how they operate and everything. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 12, he says, "But these, as natural brute beasts, made to be taken and destroyed, speak evil of things they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption, and shall receive the reward of unrighteousness, as they that count it pleasure to riot in the daytime. Spots are they and blemishes, sporting themselves with their own deceivings while they feast with you, having eyes full of adultery, and that cannot cease from sin." That's a pretty blunt statement there. I mean, they cannot cease from sin. It's not, they're not just dabbling in it. They're not just saying, well, I'll dabble in this a little bit. These are people that they're so indulged with sin, they can't cease from it. And so that's how he describes them. He says, "Beguiling unstable souls, and heart have they exercised with covetous practices, cursed children." Now look at verse 15. "Which have forsaken the right way, and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bozor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness." So we see there that Peter mentions this character that we're going to be studying, Balaam. And he comes up in this context of these people that are living like the devil. So just remember when you read about Balaam, okay, this is not the good guy. This is not the guy I want to follow after here. Then we see in the book of Jude, if you turn a few pages over, if you're looking at it, let's see here. Find my verse. Beginning in verse 9. It says, "Yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, The Lord rebuke thee. But these speak evil of those things which they know not, but what they know naturally as brute beasts, and those things they corrupt themselves." Now look at verse 11. "Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam." And then he says, "and perished in the gainsaying of Korah." And if you're familiar with our studies in the book of Numbers, we've been studying about this man Korah, who caused a full-fledged rebellion. He said, "I want the priesthood. That's what I want to do." But God said, I didn't appoint you to do that. And he said, "Well, I'm going to take it in my own hands." And he caused a full-fledged rebellion. And God said, if you don't do what's right, if you don't take heed to what I'm saying, he warned them about the fact that he's going to show they're going to suffer the consequences. And God opened up a hole in the earth, and they were swallowed down in the earth. And we know about Cain, right? Cain killed Abel, the first murderer. So Balaam's mentioned smack dab in the middle of these two guys. That's you got to remember that. So I just wanted to go over that before we get into the study, let you know kind of the character of Balaam. And as you're reading through, you might think, well, he's kind of a pretty good guy on some of this stuff. But just remember, when we get to the end of this study of these chapters, you'll see that why he's talked about like that. Any questions or comments at this point? All right, we'll continue on. Chapter 22, beginning in verse 1. This is in the book of Numbers. He says, "And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side Jordan by Jericho. And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was sore afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, Now shall this company lick up all that are round about us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at that time. So what's going on here is that Israel's been brought out from Egypt. These nations around, these other nations are seeing this. There's something different about this nation because they're able to defeat everybody they come in contact with. They've got something about the one true God they serve is different. And you got to remember also, these surrounding nations, they worship pagan gods. They were not completely ignorant of worship or that concept. But they would sometimes try to see the God of Israel and try to lump him in with these pagan gods. So God would say, I'm going to show everybody, and I'm going to make a difference between you as the nation of Israel and the God you serve. And so he would show them different things, such as taking them out through the Red Sea. That's not a natural occurrence for a man to go stand in front of a sea with a rod and hold it up into part a sea open, and then destroy the most powerful nation on the earth at that time, just a bunch of slaves that came out of Egypt. So God, he's trying to show nations around him, this nation is different from all the other nations in the world. He's trying to, and what he's trying to do is to get their attention, to get them out of that paganism and come and worship the one true God. And so the Moabites, they see here what's going on, and they're worried. And before we get going any further, this man Balak, he is the king of the Moabites. Let me write something on the board here. It may be evident to you, it may not, but this maybe will help you. So we have two characters. Numbers 22 to 24. And as I said, these chapters are one section here. It all deals with Balaam, all these chapters. So we have the main star, you could say, is Balaam. And Balaam, I guess the best way to describe him is a false prophet. You could say he was a sorcerer, even, / sorcerer. Run out of room here. So we have Balaam, and we have another man named Balak. Okay? Balak, he was king of Moab. And so the reason I'm showing you this is these two right here might get confused in your mind. You're going to be seeing Balak and Balaam. Balak and Balaam. Just remember, Balaam is this sorcerer, and Balak is the king of Moab, who's of another nation. And he's going to be trying to persuade Balaam to do some things that God ends up defeating him when he tries to do it. Is everybody good on this? Okay, good. Everybody's with me. So we see here, they see the Israelites going through, and they're wondering, we probably need to do something here. The best thing they could have done was just accept the God of Israel. That would have been the most simple thing to do. But look what happens. Verse 5, it says, he sent messengers, this is Balak, he sent messengers therefore to Balaam the son of Beor, to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, behold, there's a people come out from Egypt. Sound familiar? That's who we've been studying about. There's been a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray thee, and curse me, this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I wot that he whom thou blessed is blessed, and he whom thou cursed is cursed. So Balak, he sees what's happening with Israel. He's worried about it, and he's trying to go to this man named Balaam, who was, like I said, he kind of comes in on the scene just out of nowhere. And he's obviously some kind of false prophet. He's a sorcerer. And he looks like he uses witchcraft and things like that. You'll see that through the Old Testament. And so Balak sees that this guy's versed in all this kind of stuff. He's like, hey, I want you to curse these people. I want you to bring some bad stuff on these people. I want to be able to have some assurance here that I'm going to be okay. You know, it was a tribal atmosphere back then. So, verse 7, it says, the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination in their hand. And they came unto Balaam, and spake unto him all the words of Balak. And he said unto them, lodge here this night, and I will bring you word again, as the Lord shall speak unto me. And the princes of Moab abode with Balaam. Now, let me say right here, you may think it's strange because I'm calling Balaam a false prophet, but it's saying he's going to God to see what God says. There's some things I simply cannot explain about this. And you may have to do a little bit of your own study on this. From what I've studied, I know that he was going to God, and God was putting the word in his mouth. We're going to see that. He's obviously not a true prophet. There's no way, the way he's talked about in the New Testament. So, then we see in verse 9, it says, God came to Balaam and said, what men are these with thee? And Balaam said unto God, Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, hath sent unto me, saying, behold, there is a people come out of Egypt, which covereth the face of the earth. Come now, curse me them. Peradventure I shall be able to overcome them and drive them out. And God said unto Balaam, thou shalt not go with them, thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed. And Balaam rose up in the morning and said unto the princes of Balak, get you into your land, for the Lord refuseth to give me leave to go with you. And the princes of Moab rose up, and they went to Balak and said, Balaam refuseth to come with us. So this guy's trying all he can. He's trying to send these messengers and saying, hey, I can give you rewards. I've got money. I can give you some honor. If you'll just do what I say, if you'll just curse these people. And when Balaam goes to God, God says, I can't do that because they are righteous. And this allusion to blessing and cursing goes back to Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, where God said to Abraham, I'll bless them that bless thee, and I'll curse them that curse thee. But God said, I'm not going to curse or allow anybody, prophet, or false or not, to curse a people that is living righteously. And incidentally, that's a good, that should be a kind of a comfort to us, or some assurance to us that, hey, if we're living right, if we're doing what God says, who do we have to fear? The answer is nobody. We can live and be assured that we don't have to fear man. Now, that doesn't mean that, bad things might happen sometimes, but as far as serving God and doing what's right, Romans chapter 8 says, if God be for us, who can be against us? The answer is nobody. And when you're doing right, when you're living right, you can try to do all you can, persecute a Christian. You can take them out of their home. You can take their money away from them. You can take their material things. Everything you do is not, they're still going to prevail. They're going to make it. They're going to be blessed. And I've seen it in my own life. He's showing Balaam, I'm not going to curse the people. And we'll see how this plays out. Verse 15, it says, Balak sent yet again princes more and more honorable than they. And they came to Balaam and said unto him, thus saith Balak the son of Zippor, let nothing, I pray thee, hinder thee from coming unto me. For I'll promote thee with very great honor, and I'll do whatsoever thou sayest unto me. Come therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people. He's just determined. This reminds me of Pharaoh. Pharaoh was not willing. He wanted Israel to just be in slavery and be in bondage. He wouldn't give up. But God was like, you're going to let them go one way or another. Let's see here. What verse was I in? 18? Okay, thank you. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, if Balak would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord, to do less or more. Now therefore I pray you, tarry you here also this night, that I may know what the Lord will say unto me. It's obvious here that God is making it clear that if anybody's going to be blessed or cursed in this world, I'll be behind that. And Balaam was saying to Balak, it doesn't matter what you offer me. You could offer me $1 million, and I can't. When I speak by the inspiration of the Spirit, I have to say what it says. And that's actually a good argument for inspiration, by the way, incidentally. But he says that I can't do it. Verse 20, it says, God came unto Balaam at night and said unto him, if the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them, but yet the word which I also say unto thee, that shalt thou do. And Balaam rose up in the morning and saddled the ass and went with the princes of Moab. And God's anger was kindled because he went. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his 2 servants were with him. So we see here that it's kind of strange because God says, go ahead and go with them. But then we see Balaam go and God gets angry. You're thinking, well, why is he doing that? It's kind of like when a parent tells their child, all right, do what you got to do. And he's hoping that the child does the right thing. You know, they come to a fork in the road and, they're hoping that the child does the right thing. And you know, when I was growing up, I've seen that in my own life, and I didn't always do the right thing. So, but the thing about it is, that's the idea. That's why God was angered. He's like, I'll let you go with them, but he's sitting back hoping Balaam will do the right thing. He needs to depart from this evil man. That's what he needs to do. But instead, he goes on. Verse 24, the angel stood in the path of the vineyards, a wall being on this side, a wall on that side. When the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself onto the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he smote her again. And the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right hand or to the left. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. Now look at this. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto him, to Balaam, what have I done unto thee that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? And Balaam said unto the ass, because thou hast mocked me, I would there were a sword in my hand, for now would I kill thee. And the ass said unto Balaam, am I not thine ass upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto thee? And he said, nay. And so we see here that God is trying to, this is a strange occurrence. This explains why you have a man who's he doesn't seem to be a true prophet to me. He seems to be a false prophet. He seems to be a sorcerer. But we're going to see him speaking by inspiration. And it seems to me, if you have a donkey speaking, that's a strange occurrence. That is so bizarre. So we see here that this is not the general rule. The general rule is God's going to inspire the man that's a true prophet. But we see here God is going to inspire this man for the very purpose of defeating the purpose of Balaam, which was the wages of unrighteousness. He's like, hey, I'll do anything for money. Sure, I'll curse him. And so he's going to try to use that to go ahead and defeat that.
It kind of makes you wonder, if the men that were with him could hear the donkey, or just Balaam?
If I was the man with him and I heard that, I would certainly be perplexed.
Well,
or if I was Balaam.
Well, Balaam being some sort of man of God obviously wasn't totally shocked, because it's not important that he was shocked. But
He doesn't seem to be shocked. It seems like it's just a natural, like, oh, this is normal. But, I mean, yeah, he seems to be just like, this is like just second nature. But you do have to remember, at this time, God was manifesting himself a lot of times in a miraculous way. So, they were seeing things that I would love to have seen. I mean, I would love to have seen the Red Sea parted. I would love to see all these different things that happen in the Old Testament, these great things that you read about. Even in the New Testament, the Transfiguration, Jesus and Moses and Elijah appearing on the mount with Jesus and being transfigured. I mean, that would be a great thing to see. But there was all kind of strange occurrences. I mean, the hole in the earth opening up to swallow down Korah, that would have been, an amazing thing to see. But we see here, it's kind of like he's going by, this is his second nature, but I'm sure he understands that God is trying to get something across to me here. Verse 31, it says, then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand, and he bowed down his head and fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? Behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me. And the ass saw me, and turned from me these 3 times. Unless she had turned from me, surely now also I had slain thee, and saved her alive. And Balaam said unto the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I knew not that thou stoodest in the way against me. Now therefore, if it displease thee, I will get me back again. And the angel of the Lord said unto Balaam, go with the men, that only the word that I shall speak unto thee, that thou shalt speak. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. And so we see here, Balaam even says, I messed up, and I'll go back now. But since he's already went through with the first part of it, The angel says, go ahead and go, but you're only going to speak what I'll tell you to speak. It's going to be upon these conditions. So then we see in verse 36, it says, when Balak heard that Balaam was come, he went out to meet him unto the city of Moab, which is in the border of Arnon, which is in the utmost coast. And Balak said unto Balaam, did I not earnestly send unto thee to call thee? Wherefore camest thou not unto me? Am I not able indeed to promote thee to honor? And Balaam said unto Balak, lo, I am come unto thee. Have I now any power at all to say anything? The word that God putteth in my mouth, that shall I speak. And what he's saying there, when I'm under the inspiration of the Spirit, I don't have a choice in the words that are coming out. I have to say what it says. Does this remind you of a familiar passage in Deuteronomy? Let me read to you Deuteronomy 18. Another verse on inspiration. And this is God and Moses here. And God is speaking to Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 18, beginning in verse 18. He says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. And if thou say in thine heart, how shall we know the word which the Lord hath not spoken? When a prophet speaketh in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord hath not spoken. But the prophet hath spoken it presumptuously, thou shalt not be afraid of him. So he's showing Moses, I'm going to raise a prophet up unto thee, and ultimately that was a reference to Jesus, because he was a prophet, priest, and a king. But it's also referring to every prophet after Moses, before Jesus. He said, I'll raise him up a prophet, and whenever I do, I'm going to put my word in his mouth. He's not going to be speaking, he's not just going to be giving some good ideas or something he thought was a good to tell somebody. He's going to be saying what I give him by inspiration. And so Balaam, he's the same way. He's no different. God said, the word that I put in your mouth, that's what you're going to speak. And Balak was mad. He was upset. He said, I'm offering you all this money and honor. Why are you not cursing them? Because he didn't understand how the God of Israel operates. And Balaam said, the word that he puts in my mouth, that's determined what I have to speak. So we see here that Balak is upset. Verse 38 says, Balaam said unto Balak, lo, I am come unto thee. Have I now any power at all to say anything? The word that God putteth in my mouth, that shall I speak. And Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kirjath-Huzoth. And Balak offered oxen and sheep, and sent to Balaam and to the princes that were with him. And it came to pass on the morrow that Balak took Balaam and brought him up into the high places of Baal, that hence he might see the utmost part of the people. And so, they see so far this plan is not working out. It's not looking good, but they're going to keep trying. And so Balak says, well, let's try this. Let's go up to the high places. Does anybody know what the high places means in the Old Testament? That means they're going to practice idolatry. The high places it's synonymous with, hey, we're fixing to go engage in some idolatry. And so they would go to these high places. They'd have what they call groves. They'd have a wood, a metal, or some kind of a stone image of a god, a false god. They would worship it. And that's what they did in the high places. So we see what Balak has in mind. And Balaam, he's so materialistic and so evil. He's just like, yeah, let's go. Let's keep trying. Even after seeing the things he's seen and realizing that God's not on board with this. So we got through chapter 22 tonight. I appreciate your attention tonight. This will be a good place to stop, and we'll probably just do a chapter for each class on 23 and 24. But I appreciate your attention tonight, and we will continue next week. At this point, we'll go ahead and move into our invitation for tonight. For this, I was thinking about what I wanted to speak on earlier, and I thought a good place to go to was Galatians chapter 5, because here we have what's called the fruit of the Spirit. And what's interesting, if you read this passage, sometimes you'll hear it called the fruits of the Spirit, but you'll notice in the passage it doesn't say fruits of the Spirit, it says the fruit of the Spirit. And what he's really trying to show you there, that the fruit of the Spirit is like a cluster of grapes, and it all gets its nutrients from one central source. So these attributes here that we call the fruit of the Spirit, these that we see here, they all come from one central source, and that source is Jesus and the gospel. And so he says here in, I'll just begin in verse 19. He says, "Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God." So that's pretty, that gets pretty close to home. But look at the contrast. "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law." Isn't that a beautiful passage? These attributes that we call the fruit of the Spirit, I like that last phrase where he says, "Against such there is no law." And I like to give this illustration for what he's talking about. Let's say you had two brethren talking, and one brother was saying, "Man, I'm having really tough times making ends meet, and I'm thinking about, if it doesn't get better, I'm even thinking about going out and stealing to make ends meet." Well, if the other brother's a good brother, he'll say, "You better not do that. There's a law against it." He'll say, you need to stop in your tracks right now and get your priorities straight. But with these attributes of the fruit of the Spirit, let's say we had the same two brethren talking, and one said, "I'm thinking about taking love to the ultimate end. I'm going to do all I can for the brethren, for the church, for the cause of Christ." Could that brother say, "You better not, there's a law against it"? No, he couldn't. This verse here says there is no law against such. And that's a beautiful thing. That tells me that there's room for a lifetime for growth of all these attributes. And that's why the fruit of the Spirit is so significant and such value. Because you can work on these from now and to your whole life. To continue to improve upon love and joy and even the peace in your life. Don't you want to broaden out your peace and learn more about that? I think everybody wants that. I don't think anybody would say they don't want to do that. So we see here these fruit of the Spirit are indeed a great attributes and values that a Christian has. And if you're here tonight and you're not a Christian and you would like to have these values in your life, you can do that by obeying the simple plan of God's salvation by repenting of your sins, confessing Christ, and being baptized for remission of your sins. We're here to help you with that, and if you'd like to talk with us further, there's people here that you can talk with, and we'd like to do that too. If you're a member of the church and you've strayed off the narrow path, you'd like to be brought back into God's grace, you can do that through repentance, confession, and prayer. Whatever your need is, if you just want prayers, whatever we can do for you, please come. Let's together stand and sing.